Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're dialing in from. Thank you for joining us. This is the official kickoff for the DocuSign and Jane Goodall Institute Good Code Hackathon. So this year, as I mentioned, we are going to be benefiting specifically Jane Goodall Institute. And today, I am joined live also with two of our wonderful representatives from DocuSign and from Jane Goodall Institute. So I'm going to welcome them now to give a little quick hello, and then they will be coming back with more information to provide us a deep dive into our Jane Goodall Institute Challenge. So let's say welcome to Naveen Gopala. He's Director of Engineering with DocuSign, and Lilian Pintea, Dr. Lilian Pintea with Jane Goodall Institute. He is the Vice President of Conservation Science. So welcome to both of you. I'm really excited for this year.
Hey, thanks for having us, Stacey.
And as I said, they're going to come back very quickly here, and we will make sure we go through our Jane Goodall Institute Challenge because it is such an important challenge to this, to DocuSign and the organization. All right, we'll see you guys in a minute. Okay, let's get back to it. So we are all right, I've got some slides now. Apologize for the delay there. So I'm going to go through our basics of our challenge. So this year's challenge. The basics are we have two challenges to choose from. I'm going to go a little bit further into our two challenges. As well, we have our hackathon. Our hackathon begins now. So you can start building as of this moment, and actually as of 2 hours ago. So with our hackathon, we have our submissions that will close on August 12th at 2 p.m. and that's Pacific time. All of our times are based in Pacific time, Pacific Standard Time. So please make sure that you upload way ahead of time so you have plenty of time to make sure everything renders okay for your videos. And we want to make sure that everything is taken care of because at 2:01, you're too late and we cannot accept late submissions. So specifically to call out for our submissions, we have more information on DevPost but I'll go through some highlights. So each submission must include a 3-minute video with a step-by-step visual demo of your working application. Your DevPost submissions will ask you a boatload of questions about your project and build. We need you to fill that out so judges can understand your build and how you got there. You got to remember that this is all virtual. They're not there with you building, so they need to feel like they're there with you building. Our judges also need a way to access your working application for judging and testing by providing a URL to the publicly visible code repository. And that includes an applicable open source license. You can find links to this stuff also on DevPost. We also need to make sure you have a GitHub repository containing your project. You need to clearly disclose which code you wrote yourself and within the time frame of the hackathon, and let our judges know about any libraries or APIs that you use. Again, I'll do the quick hit of go back to DevPost for full rules, regulations, and all that legal stuff that, the fine print that we all know and love. All right, so we can also, you work with teams or as an individual. We have a total of $50,000 USD in cash prizes. And I'll keep saying it over and over again, DevPost, and then we have DevPost and Twitch and Slack. Oh my. All right, as I said, 2 ways to win. We have our Jane Goodall Institute Challenge. That's where you're going to integrate geospatial field data collection and camera trap workflows for conserving chimpanzees and their habitats for the Jane Goodall Institute. We'll be back with more of a deep dive on that in just a minute. I'm going to specifically call out, give you more information on our Greater Good Challenge. So our other challenge is our Greater Good Challenge, where you build an innovative web or mobile application that automates and connects agreement or e-signature processes for a nonprofit of your choice. The main asterisk here is that this must be a nonprofit organization that is a registered 501c3 or local equivalent to be eligible to win. That does not mean you can choose you're creating your own nonprofit organization. That is not eligible. It must be a registered 501c3 already registered. And then when I say local equivalent, if you are outside of the U.S., the registered 501c3, that's a U.S. Nonprofit note or registration, excuse me, the local equivalent in your country. And we do check into this. All right, 50K total cash prizes. You'll see first, second, and third place winners for both challenges. There is more money to our Jane Goodall Institute challenge. Why? Because we want you to do that one. And then as well, we have a bonus for Beyond DocuSign e-signature. Our bonus prizes are available to winners of the challenges or any submission that comes in. It does not have to be one of the winners, but if you are a first place winner, you can also win one of our bonus prizes. So we have our Beyond DocuSign e-signature and Best of Esri APIs and or our ArcGIS Survey 123. And you'll hear more about ArcGIS Survey 123 and our Esri applications in our Jane Goodall discussion. And this is our last slide here. This is going to be a ton of resources. As I said, we have DevPost, Twitch, and Slack. Oh my. Those are your main sources of information. Please join, click the follow button on Twitch. Make sure you follow us. Make sure you turn on that bell for notifications. I totally feel like an influencer right now. And go to our Slack channel. Join our Slack channel so you can get more information and have live access to help with from Jane Goodall and from DocuSign. We have engineers that are there to help you with your builds. And then also I want to highlight specifically, we have tomorrow, July 14th at 9 a.m., our Good Code Hackathon winners pro tips. So these are the winners of last year's Jane Goodall Institute Challenge. They will be joining us live to discuss their build. Also pretty cool, they both have won several hackathons. So I recommend you joining that to get some additional pro tips for any hackathon you want to participate in. And now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome back Dr. Lilian Pintea and Naveen Gopala. All right, welcome. So we're going to have Naveen and Lilian who are available, and Lilian is first going to go through the entire deep dive into the Jane Goodall Institute Challenge. And we will be answering questions in the comments as they come along. So please ask your questions and we will make sure to get them answered. All right, I'll hand it over to you, Lilian.
Thank you, Stacy. Let me share my screen. Share screen. And do you see my slides now? Okay, wonderful. So thank you for this opportunity to share with you this challenge about geotagging camera trap images for chimpanzee conservation using Survey 123 with decision maker signed off. Few words about myself. My name is Lilian Pintea. I'm the Vice President of Conservation Science for the Jane Goodall Institute, USA. I'm a conservation biologist. I have more than 25 years experience in applying geospatial technologies, and I'm working in sub-Saharan Africa since 1997. I've been working with Dr. Jane Goodall and our colleagues in Tanzania, Uganda, Congo, and other countries across Africa for more than 20 years now. When Dr. Goodall arrived in Gombe in 1960, she only had a pair of binoculars, a pen, paper, and her spirit of deep observation and compassionate observation. Those tools and skills enabled her to not only research chimpanzees, but also connect to them. And that enabled Dr. Jane Goodall to make some pioneering discoveries, which completely redefined our own understanding of chimpanzees, of other animals, ourselves, and even about the environment which we all share. That long-term research continues up to today at Gombe Stream Research Center in Tanzania. And on a daily basis, we have field researchers, as you could see on this, some of these field researchers following focal chimpanzee, recording very detailed data every 15 minutes. If you want to learn more about this incredible research, long-term research journey, I encourage you to check our story map site. Now, the Jane Goodall Institute today is continuing long-term research at Gombe, but it expands and complements it with a much broader vision. And our vision is for a healthy planet where people make compassionate choices to live sustainably, in harmony with each other, with other animals and the environment. Our mission is to continue to understand and protect chimpanzees, other apes and their habitats, and to work creating an informed and compassionate critical mass of people who will help to create a better world for people, other animals, and our shared environment. Now, chimpanzees are quite special. They are closest living relatives. Chimpanzees have very complex social lives. They lived in communities of multi-male, multi-female individuals, between 20 to 150 individuals. Chimpanzees have complex social organization and interaction with each other. They have very strong mother-born infants. You could see on this image, and actually the relationship between mother-infant, it's very interesting to Jane Goodall Institute because it's so similar with other primates, including ourselves. They mostly eat plants, especially they love to eat ripe fruit, but also eat various other animals. You can see here they are fishing for ants, they're fishing for termites. They do hunt sometimes when they have a chance and would eat small mammals such as monkeys and bush pigs. And even though chimpanzees are very skillful to survive in a variety of environments, they are depending on trees because they do love most of the time to build their nests in these trees. So, unfortunately, chimpanzees are in crisis. They do face a number of threats, but the most important one could be grouped into 4 major threats. First of all, and this is one of the major threats for chimpanzees across Africa, is that their habitat is lost, converted to all sorts of other land uses, such as farming, industrial agriculture. It's getting explored for logging and mining, converted to settlements. The second major threat, which in some parts of Africa is actually the main threat, it's illegal bushmeat hunting, trade, and poaching. Finally, the next major threat, it's a disease. And disease, it's complex because it could be natural diseases. For example, like there are Ebola outbreaks, which naturally occur in certain ranges of chimpanzees. But it's also, but most of the killers, most of the death from disease for chimpanzees are actually coming from humans, either in close proximity with local people, either in proximity with tourists or researchers. Chimpanzees, because they're so close to us, they're very vulnerable to all the diseases which we can get, and vice versa, we are vulnerable to diseases which we can get from chimps as well. Finally, an important threat is also illegal pet trade. What's happening is that when hunters deciding to hunt for a chimpanzee for the bushmeat, they only targeting the larger individuals, and actually they have to shoot pretty much everybody who is in that social group at that moment, in that time. But the infants, because they're so small, like you can see this infant chimp, which have been confiscated, and it has been brought in to our one of our sanctuaries in Africa. They don't have enough meat, and that's why they are kept as pets. And then chimpanzees very quickly can grow. They when they are full grown, they could be 4 to 5 times stronger than a human being, and they are long-lived animals. So these animals, traumatized, end up living in extreme, challenging, harsh conditions. The Jane Goodall Institute is systematically working with our partners and trying to stop this illegal bushmeat trade, and also to confiscate and provide chimpanzees with healthy living.
Hey, Lilian, I'm going to do a quick pause here. Sorry, we're not seeing your slides. So we're going to do a quick tech check. Sorry. At the bottom of your screen, Lilian, do you have an add to stream button on your share screen?
Yes, I do.
All right, click that, and we should be great.
And I did click it.
Okay.
And I'm so sorry about that.
That's okay. Do you want to go ahead and send me the link, and I will get that going for you?
Okay, can you see now? Oh, I'm sorry about that. So here is my quick slides again. And I'm gonna continue where I started, or where I stopped. Now, the chimpanzee historic range has been quite substantial in Africa. And the current range, as you could see, has been a drastic reduction all across Africa. And the remaining chimpanzee populations right now live in these isolated pockets distributed in different regions. Now, to really address the challenges which chimpanzees are facing, along with other biodiversity which happen to be living in the same habitats, we really truly need to have a perspective that most of those territories, most of the biodiversity is under care actually of local communities and indigenous people. For example, in places like Tanzania and Uganda where we work, 65% of the land is managed by the local communities. So there is no way we can protect chimpanzees and other biodiversity without working with local communities. And it's not just about engaging those local communities, it's about recognizing that they should be owning and leading the decision-making in their own landscapes, how it's impacting the forest, how it impacts chimpanzees, and how it's impacting their lives. That's why the Jane Goodall Institute developed over the years an approach which we call Takare, and it's our main community-led conservation approach. It empowers local people and institutions to own and drive those nature-based development and conservation decisions. In this context of Takare, there is a huge potential role to use technologies. And we're all excited. We know that like 90% of today's data was created in the last 2 years, right? But we also know that this has been true for the last 30 years. And we're generating every 2 years 10 times more data. This is quite exciting. However, if we ask ourselves how much of this big data has been converted into wiser decision, which has our conservation impact, I think we could agree that we can do much, much better. So the Jane Goodall Institute is not only using the technology to support the work with local communities, is developing approaches where this technology is used with the people of the place in order to unlock this potential and to truly engage this and develop trust for this data and information to be used in daily decisions. Now, the Jane Goodall Institute is heavily using a variety of innovative technologies. You could see here on the image on the left, we have been a pioneer in applying all sorts of smartphones and tablets, along with field data collection apps such as ODK and Survey 123. You see here our colleagues in Congo launching a drone. And recently, increasingly, we have been relying on artificial intelligence, for example, for face recognition and pattern recognition from chimpanzee videos and camera traps. So there's a variety of technologies which we're using with our partners in local communities. I want to speak specifically about two technologies which we'll be touching in this hackathon. One of them is using Esri's ArcGIS Survey 123 mobile app, running on a mobile device, a smartphone or tablet, and how we're using this with the local communities to monitor the forest and wildlife. Well, since 2005, we have been working with local communities to support them in using a GPS-enabled device. We started with Garmin, then we moved to Open Data Kit, and since 2019, we switched now to Survey 123, which is completely integrated with the broader set of tools under the powerful ArcGIS platform. And another technology which is gaining huge popularity, of course, is camera traps. It completely has been revolutionizing the way how we have been collecting information about wildlife and environment across the world. Actually, the camera traps are so relatively cheap and easy to install and maintain that you can be used in your backyard. This is a picture of a fox, which my daughter. She really wanted a camera trap to install it in her backyard and see what type of wildlife is visiting. To using camera trap as part of science surveys when we do our all sorts of scientific and research surveys to document biodiversity. For example, you can see here an image from a camera trap in an area in Western Tanzania, showing and confirming the presence of a chimpanzee. But the camera traps also can provide much more information, just the presence and absence of the chimpanzee. It can provide information about the health, the status of the chimp. It can provide about the other threats, like, for example, within 5 minutes in the same camera trap, we have livestock and dogs actually passing through. These are important potential sources of diseases, and also, of course, having an impact on the habitat quality for the forest and for the chimpanzees. And then the next camera trap is actually of the herder, who is also providing new sources of threat directly to chimps and other biodiversity, but also being exposed to that ecosystem. So camera traps are very powerful, and I'm going to share with you in the next few slides a case study from Eastern Tanzania, actually, which I would like you to maybe think about as you're working on the solution. So look at this map. It shows Dar es Salaam here, which it's the second fastest growing city in the world. Now look at this remaining forest patches. You see, that red dot right there is our Jane Goodall Institute Pugu Education Center. You can see that most of that forest by now has been cleared. So what is left is only those green patches. And if we can map the density of the houses in that area, you can see that for millions and millions of people, those forest patches are the least they are the last patches to be used, which provide some ecosystem services. They are also the last patches where youth and people can just go and experience how nature looks like. And the Pugu Education Center, it's exactly at the edge of that frontier. So the Pugu Education Center is working very closely with a variety of roots and shoots and youth clubs in order to help them engage and connect with nature. And the Roots and Shoots is our community-based conservation approach, which started in 1991. It's actually started also in Tanzania. You can see here with 12 high school students. And now Roots and Shoots grow over more than 65 countries to empower every individual to know that they have a role to play to make a difference. So the Pugu Roots and Shoots is using the Takari approach, which I mentioned before, about properly engaging and working with local communities. It also uses technology to facilitate mapping, documentation of different natural resources, and help communities put those resources on the same map and then see the connection. So, for example, they did some amazing job. You can see here the youth school, the youth from the different schools mapping their school grounds. They did it with using Survey 123, and they also use it with digitizing on screen on the satellite imagery. You can see here, for example, a community dashboard which they mapped natural resources and complementing beyond the school grounds. Where are the forests? Where are the water sources? Where are the mining sites? So all these insights really help the community see that there is a huge decrease in wildlife corridors in their communities. They actually were able to see that and make those connections. They also could have made the connection. This decrease in wildlife corridors in the forest are actually connected as well with a decrease in the water sources. So the Pugu team and the Roots and Shoots team now want to use camera traps to document what other animals are still there and are using those habitats. So in order to do that job, they are using the Survey 123 mobile app to take a point every time when they deploy a camera trap, and then they take another Survey 123 point when they collect that camera trap and move it to a different place, or when they go and exchange the memory card from the camera trap. Now the challenge which we have, and I'm going to switch to the slides. I hope that you can see still my screen. So the workflow right now, which we have, is that we set up and deploy the camera trap. You can see it here on the right.
We're not seeing, we're seeing a black screen right now.
Okay.
So yeah, let's try and maybe reshare.
Okay. I think it's big. Yeah. Share screen. For some reason, it's not activated.
Are you sure?
I see. Okay.
Got it?
Got it.
I'm seeing us.
And
there, we got it. Thank you.
Yes, so you can see here the workflow where we're setting up and deploying those camera traps. When this happens, the the stuff where the volunteer is also collecting a survey 123 entry using the smartphone app. Then when it comes back and removes the camera trap or the memory card, it collects another camera trap survey 123 form. Then what's happening is that this survey 123 forms are uploaded into our ArcGIS Online account, and the camera trap images are uploaded into our Azure account using Media Valet digital asset management tool. The person who is uploading the data from the camera trap into the Media Valet is giving, for each camera and each deployment, is giving that folder a name, a unique name, which is a composite of the camera trap name and the date of the first image collected on the camera trap. The volunteers are encouraged to trigger a camera trap when they set it up, so it's the same day. Now that process right now, it's entered manually here, and then we're manually exporting the ArcGIS Online shapefile or an Excel file from the survey 123, and connecting then the date and the name of the camera from the survey 123 app with the date and the survey and the camera ID from the Media Valet. This process is done manually. It takes a lot of time, and it's really overwhelming. There's also a lot of opportunities to introduce errors. Now, on the Media Valet side, we have now algorithms using artificial intelligence to automatically detect presence and absence of chimpanzees, and we are working even on identifying individual chimpanzees and unknown chimpanzees. There are some incredible work which we're doing also in detecting maybe even the behavior of chimpanzees in both images and videos. However, those images coming directly from cameras, they're not geotagged. And the only way for us to georeference those images is to connect with survey 123 coordinates, along with all the other attributes which this camera trap is collecting, which are very useful for interpreting the camera trap images. Now, this is the example of a camera trap form. The users include the project name, day name. Each camera has a unique ID, so that camera ID is entered here in the survey 123 form. Then it does collect when the point is collected, the GPS location. There are some simple click on attributes here. If it's about removing the memory card or placing a new camera, there is some attributes about where the camera is located, the height of the camera, the name of the area where the camera is deployed, the type of the camera, the maker of the camera. And this is kind of important because we can't really control what type of camera will be used, and each camera is slightly different, but they all have the possibility to have the date and the name of the camera included as part of the image. There is some additional information about what feature the camera is targeting. A photo is taken of the site where the camera was deployed, and then some other questions for the quality control and some comments. So this is a lot of attributes which we would like to connect with the actual images. And the challenge which we have is that right now these attributes are on survey 123. I can give you an example now. We are in that same map. This is Dar es Salaam. We can zoom in into our little Pugu reserve, which you see at the edge. And I shared with you some examples of camera trap images, which you have access to those links now. I'll just give you an example that this is, for example, the camera trap 1. And you can see the attributes which were collected for the camera trap 1. You can also see the image when this camera was deployed, and this is for the camera trap 2. right? But right now our challenge is how we can connect actually the data from the media valley with the data, georeference data, which I just showed you from survey 123 automatically. And because this work is done in a context with multiple stakeholders, because the camera traps are recording sometimes sensitive information, which could be endangered animals, it could be maybe some illegal activity, because these camera traps are often located with the local communities, it requires, during this workflow, some multiple approvals. And here I would like to invite Naveen back to talk a little bit more about what potential DocuSign technology approvals could be used in this workflow, which you might want to explore.
Thanks, Lilian, for that presentation. As you heard from Lilian, right? So they're dealing with a lot of manual work to be able to connect ArcGIS system, the Survey 123 data to the Media Valley here. So as we are trying to collaborate with Jane Goodall Foundation here to kind of help them out with these issues, we want to be able to try to encourage you guys to use some of the DocuSign products that are available to help automate and streamline some of these processes, and eventually, ensure there's data consistency, it's more reliable, and then at the end of the day, save some time in their effort to preserve the chimpanzee environment here. So with that in mind, here you can see some of the recommendations that we are trying to make to the participants here. So the first and foremost, right, there's this two sets of data, the actual Survey 123 form data itself, and then the Media Valley, the actual camera trap images. So DocuSign offers something called Power Forms, where basically, it's a web form equivalent where you can actually try to connect these two systems with their APIs, and then have a mapping algorithm to map this data using the camera name or the camera ID, because they follow some sort of standard, I think based on one of the images that's shown. So you can hook these two systems up and then present this form to the reviewer to make sure that the mapping is actually accurate. And then if there is any kind of like offset within the mapping itself, you can edit those data within the form itself and then submit for approvals. The other thing that Lilian also was highlighting was based on the location of the camera trap, based on the data that's being collected. Sometimes it's a little bit more sensitive than the other data. So based on various different parameters on how sensitive the information is, maybe you want to redirect them to multiple levels of approvals or tone down the level of approvals that you might need. So you could use the DocuSign's e-sign and then the approval workflow system here to make sure that you capture all the necessary approvals and consents that are required before we actually, update the data itself. So once we have the mapping, once we have the approvals, now what we can do is, we have to go back into Media Valley and then update all this information, the geospatial information, the camera trap location information, all of these information, right? So you could use Media Valley APIs and then all of this data that was collected through DocuSign Power Forms to go back and update this information using DocuSign Connect notifications or even notifications to make an external outbound request to the system where the actual images are stored, and then update the actual images itself to capture the geospatial location information there. So with these recommendations, I think this is a good way to get started off on ideating your approach on how to solve this issue by bringing together various systems that Jane Goodall Institute uses, the Survey 123 Media Valley, and then also embedding DocuSign on top of it to come up with an elegant solution here. So again, this is just some recommendations from our end. During the course of this hackathon, you're more than welcome to constantly reach out through various different channels that Stacy was referring to earlier. And then we would be definitely more than happy to help you out on any questions you may have there. So yeah, I'm hoping that these recommendations will help you get started off on brainstorming on some of the ideas to help Lillian's problem here. Thanks, Lillian. Back to you.
Thank you, Naveen. And I'll be very interested to hear your questions and see if there is a way for us to clarify this challenge. I will also share, maybe we should share, since we had some technical difficulties from the beginning, the presentation itself as well, so you can see the slides which you missed.
Great, we'll make that available for sure. And as well, we'll, as I noted in our chat, we will also make available the camera flow workflows that your camera trap workflows that you're looking at currently, as well as all of the resources that are located within the resources section of DevPost.
Right.
So now is your chance. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask live and get answered, please post those in chat now, and we'll give you just a couple minutes. And as well, while we do that, I'm going to pop up our, well, we know it's you guys. All right. I'm going to also share again our developer hackathon, our developer and hackathon resources slide. This slide will also be made available to those folks who have joined Slack. So another hit, join Slack. So join our Slack channel. That is also provided in the chat, the link to join. That is also going to be a great source of quick information, as well as easy access to get your engineering questions answered. We've got several of our DocuSign folks that are in there helping, as well as Lilian and one of his colleagues, Merlin, who will also be able to answer any of your Jane Goodall specific questions. All right, it looks like we don't have any questions immediately. So that's totally fine. I think everybody's letting it absorb. We will make the slideshow available. This presentation will also be immediately available on Twitch afterwards, the recording as well. We will upload this recording to YouTube to be available longer than Twitch, because Twitch has a little bit of a timeout situation. So we'll make sure to be there. And finally, last plug, please, please, please join us tomorrow at 9 a.m. for our Good Code Hackathon winners pro tips. It's going to be a really great presentation. So with that, I will say thank you, Lilian, and thank you, Naveen, for joining us. This has been an excellent presentation, and I think it's going to be so helpful for all of our participants, and we're really looking forward to this year's challenge. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.